With Caitlin Clark injured, the WNBA will be reliant on their other stars to carry the league. I'm not just talking about ratings. I'm not just talking about attendance. The WNBA will be reliant on their other stars to maintain the interest of the mainstream. With Angel Reese being the only player with mainstream name recognition, most of the pressure, it is going to be on her to perform. And we have plenty of evidence that proves Angel Reese is not qualified to carry the league.
Caitlin Clark's season has officially come to a crushing end, and this time, it's not just about bad luck or a string of injuries. The shadow of Angel Reese's jealousy has been looming all year, fueling drama, reckless physical play, and an ugly atmosphere that finally pushed Clark's body past its limit. From the quad strain in May, to groin issues in June and July, to the bone bruise in August, it was hit after hit. And instead of the league protecting its brightest star, Reese's obsession with taking Clark down turned into the sideshow that spiraled out of control. Now the result isn't just a personal heartbreak for Clark, it's a league-wide disaster. Fans are fed up. No matter how much Reese wants to believe she's the face of the W, this season proves otherwise. And Angel Reese's response to all of it? Silence. Maybe even satisfaction.
Angel Reese, under pressure. When you think about it, there have been so many classic songs written about the WNBA dump. Obviously, Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie, which directly applies to what Angel Reese and her colleagues are going through right now. An immense amount of pressure to carry this dump of a league while Caitlin Clark recovers.
Think back. How many times did we watch Caitlin Clark shoved, grabbed, and knocked off balance, only for the cameras to cut to Angel Reese celebrating like the rough play was some kind of trophy? That's what enrages fans the most. It wasn't subtle. Clark was hammered on curls, bodied before even touching the ball, and hit on nearly every trip down the floor. And while Reese leaned into the theatrics of the rivalry, the basketball itself slid into something uglier. It stopped looking like competition and started looking like one player being openly hunted, night after night, with zero accountability.
Well, it all started last year, in her rookie season, where she received 20% of all the flagrant fouls in the league. And most of them came from Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky. And these weren't basketball plays. They were not only fouling her, but they were getting up laughing about it. Laughing about Caitlin Clark getting assaulted. Any other work environment, people go to jail for what's going on.
And here's the brutal irony. The same player who carried the WNBA to record-breaking viewership, packing arenas in Dallas, Vegas, New York, and Chicago, was left completely exposed. While networks poured millions into Clark broadcasts and fans bought tickets months in advance, the league's brightest star became a target. Instead of celebrating her talent, jealousy turned into an arms race of fouls, cheap shots, and intimidation. For Clark, that translated into collisions, awkward landings, and twisted pivots that stacked up into injuries that never should have happened.
Now, what little girl wants to grow up and play in a league where you're targeted like that? How do you sit here and profess and demand that everyone take women's sports seriously when you can't even take it seriously enough to not act like a junior high queen on the court? It's stupid. That's so dumb. It looks like a soap opera.
This wasn't just frustrating, it was dangerous to the very foundation of the league. Every time Clark absorbed another cheap shot from players desperate to prove they weren't overshadowed, the clock ticked closer to this breaking point. Her quad strain, her lingering groin problems, none of these were random flukes. They were the byproduct of weeks of unchecked physicality, with opponents more focused on knocking her off balance than outplaying her with skill. And yes, Angel Reese was right at the center of that storm, leaning into the villain role, feeding off the spotlight, even if it meant doing so at Clark's expense.
And last year, I noticed how much it was just Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark was taking all the hits. Caitlin Clark was taking all the abuse. But this year they've added Sophie Cunningham. She gets more flagrant fouls on her than anybody in the league, besides Caitlin Clark. And Aaliyah Boston, she's been taking hits as well. But the worst thing is the consistency. So they don't call flagrant fouls, or most of the time, Caitlin Clark could be held for an entire game at a time. They don't call fouls. They don't call common fouls.
And that's why fans are calling out the hypocrisy. The WNBA had no problem parading record ticket sales, sold-out jerseys, and unprecedented sponsorships, all built on Caitlin Clark's rise. But when it came to protecting their biggest star, they let jealousy-fueled rivalry spiral into a circus. The result? The very player they built their marketing machine around is now sidelined for the season, leaving arenas half empty and TV networks scrambling to adjust.
You spend all this time trying to get respect for your league, and then you do bitch stuff. The only B's out there I see are the B's that are being dramatic about Caitlin Clark. That's all I see. They try so long to get respect for women's basketball, and then they treat it like a junior high school girl's locker room. Junior high school girl antics on the court. Instead of playing the game, they gotta be drama because they're jealous. Instead of letting their skills speak for themselves, they gotta be drama because they're jealous.
So, what happens when your golden goose is forced out of the game because rivals like Reese couldn't control their obsession? What happens when you build an empire around a single star but let jealousy dictate how she's treated on the floor? The result is Caitlin Clark limping along the sidelines while the league, and Angel Reese herself, scramble to explain why she can't even fill her own arena. The targeting, the jealousy, the cheap shots didn't just sway box scores. They paved the road to Clark's season-ending collapse. And now the fallout isn't just inside the paint. It's everywhere. Was Caitlin Clark's second season doomed from the very first practice? Looking back, it feels inevitable. Go back to training camp in May, reports already hinted her quad was tightening. Most franchises would have slowed things down, given their star a real chance to recover. Instead, Clark was paraded out as the centerpiece of every scrimmage, every media blitz, every storyline. Meanwhile, Angel Reese and her camp were circling like sharks, pushing the idea that Clark couldn't handle the league's physicality. Fast forward, by June, that nagging quad turned into a groin issue. By July, the groin became a full tear. And by August, the announcement everyone feared was reality: Clark's season was over. This wasn't one unlucky twist. It was a season-long pattern, a perfect storm of mismanagement and jealousy that robbed the WNBA of its brightest star before she ever had a fair chance.
I mean, it's a gut punch that basically encompasses an entire season of them. The Fever have lost so many players to injury, but obviously none bigger than Clark. And there was such a wait for this second season after her magnificent rookie season. And then, the anticipation of her possibly coming back, only for that not to happen, takes a lot of air out of the room, obviously takes a lot of energy out of the fans, and is a devastating blow for not just the Fever and the WNBA.
Clark, a two-time All-Star and the 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year, has been sidelined suffering a right groin injury during the Fever's 87-77 win over the Connecticut Sun on July 15th. If you guys remember that game, Caitlin Clark put the team on her back in the waning minutes to give the Indiana Fever that lead. Clark also suffered a bone bruise at a later date during her recovery process. Caitlin has worked so hard throughout this time, doing everything possible to recover and return to the court, but ultimately, time is not on our side, said Indiana Fever COO and GM Amber Cox. While we wait, while we will continue working with Caitlin and provide her with every resource we have available, there is not enough time left in our season for her to safely return, and her long-term health and well-being remains our top priority. We are looking forward to having her back at full strength to start the 2026 season. Clark appeared in 13 games during the regular season, averaging 16.5 points, 8.8 assists, and 5 rebounds per game, while helping lead the team to the 2025 WNBA Commissioner's Cup title.
And this is what Caitlin wrote. I had hoped to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season. I spent hours in the gym every day with the singular goal of getting back out there. Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I am feeling. I want to thank everyone who had my back through all the uncertainty. This has been incredibly frustrating, but even in the bad, there is good. The way fans continue to show up for me and the Fever brought me so much joy and important perspective. I'm so proud of how this team has only gotten stronger through the adversity this year. Now it's time to close out the season and claim our spot in the playoffs.
My inside sources are telling me that Mama Reese demands free tickets. The Chicago Bravado, they happily oblige because they're also giving away free tickets to the other dozen or so people that show up to the arena.
Angel Reese is now quoted as saying, I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we're watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. She refuses to say Caitlin Clark's name. It's because of Me Too. And I want you to realize, sorry, young lady, nobody knows who you are. Nobody would be watching the WNBA additionally for you. This is all about Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is bringing the money to the game, the planes to the game, the TV viewership. The WNBA is on fire because of Caitlin Clark.
Her rookie year with the Chicago Bravado, the numbers were eerily similar. It was around 88% capacity. Angel Reese averaged around 8,700 a game. Going into 2025, Angel Reese was the only star in the secondary dump unrivaled. For the first time in her career, it was her opportunity to prove that she could draw. It was her opportunity to prove that she did not need Caitlin Clark to draw an audience. What was the end result? Unrivaled averaged 221,000 viewers. For reasons unknown, the mainstream media called this a resounding success. The rest of us called it huge embarrassing fail.
We've got Colin Cowherd saying, you know what? Guess what I didn't talk about on my show this year? The WNBA. Guess why? He just come out and said it yesterday. Because Caitlin Clark was not playing. That's why. He said, I led my show, my biggest, largest national sports radio show in the country. I led my show with Caitlin Clark 6 times last year. I mean, you don't lead a show with anybody unless they can draw ticket prices. The demand fell off a cliff. And it's not just the on-court product that suffers without 22, number 22, Caitlin Clark. The entire weekend's economic opportunities have felt the fallout.
They could have easily said 2 months, 1 to 2 months, be evaluated in the next 6 weeks. Instead, they played this day-to-day, game-time decision, probable, questionable nonsense for the last 8 weeks. And that is why fans are so pissed off for the most part. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I know if they were upfront and didn't BS us, people wouldn't be that angry at the organization, at least not as angry as they are now.